To some, it's still a vice. To others, it's about time. But ask some experts, and the odds have never been better to expand gambling in Texas.
Gaming and gambling are good examples of the way that things take a long time to really germinate and develop in the legislature.
In fact, a recent poll from the University of Houston found 3 out of 4 Texans support the passage of a Senate resolution that, if passed and approved by voters, would enact a sweeping legalization of gambling. But that doesn't make it a straightforward effort, and the nuts and bolts of it can get a little hairy.
There's several different bills regarding gambling in the legislature. Some look at prosecuting gambling, others just the definition of gambling. But when it comes to letting the average Texan place a bet, there's generally 2 major efforts. One is a broader effort to legalize casinos in Texas. The other, a more narrow plan just to legalize sports betting online. Each of those efforts comes with the support of some high-profile teams, with the latter being backed by the Texas Sports Betting Alliance.
It's already here. We're not expanding gambling. We're addressing what's already happening here and keeping that revenue here for Texans.
The Sports Betting Alliance is a coalition of major sports teams in Texas, from Austin FC and the Cowboys to the Astros and the Spurs. Their proposal is to regulate the robust illegal market already in Texas.
It's estimated about $8 billion are placed illegally in Texas every year. So rather than just legalize it, regulating it is what's actually going to protect the consumers.
The other $1 million effort is backed by Las Vegas Sands, a gambling enterprise that launched a high-profile effort to legalize gambling in Texas last session. They did not return CBS Austin's request for an interview.
It's a dice roll. I think the odds are better than they've been in recent sessions.
Both Governor Greg Abbott and House Speaker Dade Phelan appear to have warmed to the idea of gambling expansion, if at least not rejecting it outright. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, on the other hand, not so much.
The sources of pushback include social conservatives, people who are worried and opposed to an expansion of gambling on moral grounds.
That includes the Christian Life Commission, a religious advocacy group.
I don't think anybody in the state, there may be a couple that would like us turning into what you see when you drive in Oklahoma or when you drive through Louisiana or Mississippi. The idea of every exit there being a little shady casino, I don't think works for this state. I don't think being alone and being right is, bothers the state of Texas.
That isn't stopping the Sports Betting Alliance or Las Vegas Sands from investing in Texas. The Texas Ethics Commission reports Las Vegas Sands has registered around 90 lobbyists this session. Plus, last year they launched a PAC that's contributed hundreds of thousands of dollars to the state's big 3 political leaders, according to Transparency USA. The Sports Betting Alliance has its own lobbyists, including one familiar face as a spokesperson, former Governor Rick Perry.
Betting on sporting events have been a pastime, I'm pretty sure, literally for millennia. And it's happening in the state of Texas to a substantial amount, as it does across the country.
And advocates for gambling say Texas is losing money by not legalizing casinos or sports betting, especially considering each of Texas's surrounding states have legalized some form of it. Louisiana, which allows both casinos and sports betting, has a $6.3 billion economic impact. New Mexico has casinos and some in-person sports betting with a $2.2 billion industry. And Oklahoma's casinos have a $9.8 billion economic impact. Ultimately, both of those proposals, if passed, would still turn to the Texas voters to decide their fate. A high point legislative critics should consider, says Governor Perry.
It's pretty hard to argue that if the voters are smart enough to elect you to your job as a state rep, state senator, that they're smart enough to make the decision on whether or not this should be regulated in the state.
But without the support of the big 3, the legislation faces an uphill battle.
If I had to say right now, I'd probably put it in like the 35 to 40% range, just because of the absence of commentary out of the governor and lieutenant governor. I think if it doesn't get passed this year, it's going to be back on the docket again in 2025. If it doesn't get passed then, it's going to be back on the docket in 2027.
Michael Atkinson, CBS Austin News.